Thank you for joining us at Books as Bad as Twilight podcast. This podcast will discuss books that may or may not be as bad as the popular series Twilight. As can be expected, we will discuss the books in detail, so spoiler alert.
We highly suggest you read the book beforehand or read along with us. You can use the link in our show notes to purchase the current book we're reading. Also in our show notes are links to the Books as Bad as Twilight website and all of our social media pages. Quick shout out to our image designer, Katie Hartung. Her website is listed in our show notes at khartgraphics.com. KHART graphics.com.
Music at the beginning of the show provided by Gabe Miller Music. You can find him on YouTube, SoundCloud, and his website, GabeMillerMusic.com. Like, they come up with these theories and stuff and talk about the books in a way that are just so interesting to me that almost when I listen to other podcasts now, like, I actually don't want to because I love listening to their stuff so much.
Yeah.
Because everything else sounds old to me.
Well, you know my Harry Potter favorite podcast to go to. The Powerotica podcast.
At first I was sitting here, I'm like, what is it?
What is it? Please tell me more.
I don't know this.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. Yes,
So that's the Powerotica podcast where they read Harry Potter erotic fanfic.
Erotic, yeah. I was actually just listening to that this morning. I truly was. Yeah.
You're behind. You need to catch up, girl.
I'm very behind. Very behind. There's so many podcasts I want to listen to. Like, that's the problem. So what I do is I sprinkle out episodes, but like...
Yeah.
And so I was on episode, I think, 3 of season 2. I have a long way to go.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, it's a problem. But, you know, it's okay. That's the same with every podcast I listen to. Not just that one.
Oh, that is just us plugging... Oh, well, the first one you talked about, which was Witch Please.
Yeah, Witch Please. Yeah,
just in case this gets in and we want to give credit where credit is due.
Credit is due, yes. All right. So,
welcome back!
Yes, welcome, everyone, to... I literally was about to say Potterotica podcast. Wow. Welcome back, everyone, to the Books as Bad as Twilight podcast.
Or Boba Tea.
Yeah, I love it so much.
You came up with it.
No, you did.
No. You had it on the...
Well, I had
the doc.
I did, but I called it BaBat, and then you were the one who said Boba Tea. I was like, BaBat.
I can't read.
BaBat.
BaBat.
And then you were like, Boba Tea, and I'm like, that's better.
That's so funny.
So, yeah. That's funny that you said that. There you go. My name is Danielle.
And I'm Brittany.
And today we are going to talk about the prologue and then chapter 1 through 4.
Yes.
Of Lost in a Book by Jennifer Donnelly. So...
How do you want to start?
Yeah,
because there's a lot.
There's a lot to take in. I guess, first impressions, like, as you were first reading the book, like, what were...
Well, okay, so, when it comes to the prologue, I have a really big issue with the prologue. Mm-hmm. Mainly because it's about 2 sisters who are eternal beings named Love and Death. And I've talked to you about this before. Yeah. It's very cliche because it's bringing in these 2 eternal beings that are opposites of one another, yin and yang. Yeah. So I get it. Like, it is a classic trope that everyone uses, and this is for young adults, this book, and you want to introduce them in a fun, new way. Right. I get it. Love and death are not opposites of one another. Right. So, right at the beginning, I have a problem with that. Then, following their little, like, introduction, describing who they are, what they want in their story, but they don't say in the story, what they want in the future, it seems so... It doesn't need to be there. Yeah. I think you could have this entire story without love and death in it.
I agree.
They don't add anything to the story, especially if you just read the the summary of the story, because we already know magic exists in this world if you're familiar with Beauty and the Beast. So if she finds an enchanted book, it makes sense that she's going to be in it. Right. You could have all of this without love and death. Now, whether or not they play a more important role later on, I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I hope so, because otherwise I just think it's a waste of a prologue and waste of 2 characters. That could be very interesting.
I think you have a really good point, because like you said, it doesn't need to be there. Something that that one podcast I told you about that talks about the Pixar movies.
Yeah.
Something they talk about is this theory in writing called jazz hands, where people use things that have no significance and literally mean nothing, but they make it look pretty, and they give it's almost like the aesthetic of the movie and or movie, book, what have you. And it doesn't make it good. It just distracts you from the bad stuff. And this book has a ton of it, but I think that prologue is one of them. And maybe it will come back. I kind of hope it does. Yeah. Because it would justify it. But like you said, we don't need the jazz hands. A lot of times the story can be better if you get rid of all that. Make it tighter, which this book doesn't do. As far as we can tell.
As far as we can tell from the first one. Well, what do you have a lot of notes on the prologue. What's your general feel of it?
So I agree with you. I think this is really cliche. Like you said, we kind of talked about this beforehand, so I didn't write down what you just said about how love and death are not opposites. No. And I love how, like, they try to describe them as almost like these...
Oh my god!
Yeah, they're like these hipster, weird... I hate using the word hipster because I don't mind hipsters, but, like, it's this weird...
It's a cliche.
Yes, it's so cliche.
Because death is pale skin and wears all black. Yeah. And then love is dark skin wearing all white. We get it. They're supposed to be opposites. Yeah. But, okay. Yeah, no. So when it comes to opposites, and which is what I like about, in the prologue, the only thing I like about the prologue is that they have a common vice, which is gambling.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you know, I do like that. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I like the fact that you're trying to make them similar, besides just their green eyes that they share, which is brought up a couple times. Yeah. Just like Harry.
It is, but okay. But there's the difference. What you just said is a really good thing. That in Harry Potter, the reason it's brought up a lot about his green eyes is the significance that his parents are dead, and the relationship to his parents that he doesn't have any longer. So it's this constant reminder, like, because it is significant, his ties to his mother, because she sacrificed herself for him. Like, that is literally a beat of the story. Yeah. And it's world building.
Good word.
Yeah, I love that word so much. You'll probably hear me using it a lot. But this book, like, I get what they're trying to do, but it doesn't work. They're just taking tropes that exist in other books and just copying them.
Yes. They play wizard's chess.
Yes!
I'm so angry with that.
Yep, I know. The thing is, I didn't even realize until it starts describing it, and I'm like, I know you had mentioned it to me, and I was like, oh, here it is. This is it. And this is it's not good. Like, it's just, it's trying to be good. And that could fool. A first-time reader could come to this book and think it's really good. My hope is that when they return to it, when they get older, they might be like, oh, this isn't as good. But,
well, there's other books for this age group, because this is a young adults 10 and above book. I don't feel that... I feel a good story should be read at any age group.
I agree too, yeah.
So if you take something like Harry Potter, which is for this age group, I could read that now, and I'm 27 years old.
I agree.
And enjoy it. Right. And, like, it's too simple for this age, and it's dumbing down literature.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think, like what you just said, you can return to books. Like, one of my favorite books, actually, is Bridge to Terabithia.
Oh, yeah, I love that book.
Which is a book written for 10, 11. We actually read it when I was in 5th grade. I was 11 years old. So that's a book that you can return to.
Good for you remembering what you read at 10.
Well, I actually reread it because I didn't like it when I was in 5th grade.
Oh, okay.
I read it when I got older, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's crazy, too. I didn't even like it when I first read it. When I was a kid, I think it was a quote from C.S. Lewis. He said, a children's book is never a good children's book unless it can be enjoyed as an adult.
And there you go. Another good children's book, all the Narnia series.
Yes, definitely. And it's just insane. Like you said, it's not fair to dumb down a text just because your audience is not well versed in this type of thing.
Yeah.
You can return to books and maybe not like them as much. Like I know when I first read Where the Red Fern Grows.
That one I read when I was 10. Yeah. I remember that.
Oh, you read when you were 10. I read it when I was 12. So yeah, pretty close. And I loved it. And I loved it because how it introduced me to the idea of incorporating a title at the end of a book. Like that amazed me. I read it again.
Was your mind blown?
Oh, it was so blown. Oh my gosh. I mean, it truly was.
Oh my god, it's the title.
Yes.
I love it when you're watching like a movie or a show and it slips in. It's like,
title.
It's a game. Take a shot.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so true. But when I returned to Where the Red Fern Grows, not to bash on that book because it's a good book, but I found that when I returned to it, I didn't like it as much because I have been exposed to those ideas.
Yes.
I bring that up because with Harry Potter, it's kind of the same thing, but at least when you return to these books, what stays the same is that they're still good stories.
Yes.
They hold up. They're intelligent in what they do, even if, subjectively speaking, you can't enjoy them as much as... But this book, I don't think is a book that will hold the test of time.
Oh, God, no.
No.
I will never return to this book once we finish it.
No. And
I feel so bad that you have the hardcover.
Well, you know, I got this. I found it. I was at Walmart or something, and I saw it, and it was like $15.
Oh my word!
And I'm like, okay, that's kind of expensive.
Yeah.
And so I looked on Amazon. It was only like $6, and I'm like, I'm buying that.
So I got it on the Kindle.
Yeah. But this book, it starts out. First of all, I hate the first sentence. Okay, once upon forever. Like right away, it's trying to be smart. Once upon forever, and it's like, oh, it's not once upon a time, it's once upon forever. See?
Well, I think it's once upon forever because they're two eternal beings.
Probably.
That's how I read it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the things that she writes, you have to read again.
Yes.
To make it make sense.
Yeah.
Like you said, once upon forever, it's like, oh, that sounds clunky.
Well, even like...
It's like, oh, makes sense.
Yeah. Well, even what you just said, her sentences are clunky. And I think it's her trying to think she's being smarter about it. And all I can think about is in Mean Girls with Amy Poehler. And she's like, I'm a cool mom.
I'm a cool mom. Love Amy Poehler.
Yeah. Like, that's all I can think about when I read this book because it's like, I'm a good author. See, I'm a smart author. Not really. Like, just because you use big words and you have run-on sentences...
And then clipped sentences.
Oh, God, yeah. And even, like, one thing I want to talk about, too, is, like, death itself. Like,
yes.
Death is a really interesting concept. Like, obviously it's in Harry Potter with the Tale of the Three Brothers.
Oh, God, yes, that's my favorite.
Yes, it's so good. And, like, The Book Thief. Have you read The Book Thief?
No, I haven't.
That's a really good one as well. Terry Pratchett wrote a book series called Discworld, which I would highly recommend for you because... Death is one of the characters in those books, and it is excellent. Like, it's so well done.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because, like, once again, I think people will be introduced, younger children come to this book and are introduced to death.
Yeah.
And it's just sad that, like, they can't be exposed to it in a different way.
Death is a very heavy topic. And it's on the first page, at least for my ebook, I don't know about you.
Yeah.
It says, only fools rush death, said death. And, like, it goes back to the once upon forever.
Right.
You know, it's simple in the writing, but you have to digest that.
Yeah, it's...
You know?
It's trying to do more than it actually can. Like, it's almost like running... Like,
yes.
It's... I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, it's just moving a little too fast.
It's a big, muscly man who can't open a jar of pickles.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
That's what that is.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, and this book has a lot of that.
Yeah.
And even the dialogue going back and forth, like if I can just read this real quick, like,
sure.
It's your move, said Love. I'm quite aware of that, said Death. Tick-tock, said Love. Only fools rush death. Like,
said Death. Let's read that. Okay. You be Love, I'll be Death.
Okay.
Let's read that as if it was a normal transaction.
Okay. It's your move.
I'm quite aware of that.
Tick-tock.
Only fools rush death. See? That...
Yeah, it's not realistic.
No.
It's pretentious to me, honestly. That's the word I keep thinking of. It's pretentious. It's trying. When you read a lot of these stories that take place, I would say, in medieval times, or even just trying to be British.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, you see this, and it's like, okay, so say you read A Game of Thrones, and you're like, oh, well, what's the word from Game of Thrones? Like,
one of my favorite books.
Yeah, I know, right? He was had a sword in his hand, so let's put sword in there, and I can't think of words specifically, but like just taking words and then using them, and that doesn't make it a good sentence. That doesn't,
like half.
That's a good
done
one.
Something
exactly, like that doesn't make it good. Like what makes it good is, I don't even know how you would call it. Like it's just how it's written. Like if you're a good writer, you can do it. Like just throwing words together doesn't make it good.
No,
and that unfortunately is this book a lot. We did talk about the chess set.
Yes.
How it comes alive, like Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying nobody can't use that, but at the same time, what's the point?
I hope there's just this one part was a bit of foreshadowing. I hope so.
Yeah.
It's the paragraph where the queen takes the king. As Love and Death watched, the queen offered the king a kiss. Surprised by so sweet a mercy, the king embraced the queen. A second later, he crumbled to the board, a dagger sticking out of his back. I'm hoping that's foreshadowing, because that's really smart.
Yeah.
If that's what it was.
Right.
But what were you gonna say about the chess?
I was just gonna say that chess is often used as a tool to show like a battle between opposing forces.
Yes.
It's just it's another cliche. I'm not saying it's a bad cliche. It's interesting, but it's just
There's a book series that I like, the King Killer Chronicles, and the author created his own chess. It's called Tack, and I actually have the board game itself.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So it's something like that. It's the opposing forces, but for Tack, the tagline for it is the most beautiful game ever played. The point of the game is not to win, but to play well and play beautifully.
Okay.
And so you could play a great game and still lose. And that's the beauty of...
See, that's interesting.
Right? And it has such a different dynamic to it.
I think that perfectly describes what this book lacks, is that this book doesn't really have much of interesting, like things to offer. Like everything we've already heard and seen before. So yeah, I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
One thing that I personally hate, this is not just for this book, but it's every kind of Disney, everything that Disney has put out about Beauty and the Beast since their original Beauty and the Beast in 1991. Yeah. Is that they always, for some reason, they fell into this trap of making Belle this infallible human being.
Yes.
Yeah. And
oh God, can I read that sentence?
Please do.
This girl is the rarest of creatures, one who sees with her heart. My sister is right. She could be the one, and that won't do.
Ugh, gross.
Yeah. It's such an issue because you are preventing any character development.
Right.
With a sentence like that. And we all know Belle was ostracized because she liked to read, because she was educated. And she wanted to move elsewhere in her life. But she still had flaws.
Right, exactly.
She's stubborn.
Right.
And she's naive. And she doesn't see with her heart. Not in the beginning.
Right, exactly.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Belle is supposed to be a complex character because we as people are complex. And if you want someone to relate to that, you can't put them on a pedestal.
Right. which unfortunately she is put on all the time. I mean, and what she becomes because of that is this sort of Jesus Christ figure almost for the Beast. Not to say Christ figure's not a bad thing. Like, she is a Christ figure in the original movie because she sacrifices herself. But there's a difference between making her like this perfect human being who can do no wrong and who is there to save. It's like almost her mission to save the Beast.
Yeah.
And that's not her mission. Like,
no.
Her mission is really nothing. She's trapped. Like, she's held captive. She doesn't want to be there. No. She doesn't want to save the Beast. Like, but that's what she becomes, and that's how she is in this book. Unfortunately.
Well, from what we read so far.
And the book tries, and we'll get to this, but the book tries to make it seem like she doesn't like want to do that. But it's just words. Like, it means nothing. Yeah. It's just doing the same thing all over again. If we ever dabble into this, one of the the movie Beauty and the Beast: The Enchanted Christmas, the sequel.
Oh, go on.
Oh, it is. It is a treat.
I don't watch a lot of sequels. The only sequel I think I really watched was Lilo and Stitch. Rather. I think that's the only sequel. And, of course, Toy Story.
Well, yeah, Toy Story. Yeah, that's a whole different beast, I guess. But
but the original, like the hand-drawn animations of Disney, I haven't seen Mulan 2, Pocahontas 2, like none of those.
I haven't seen Mulan 2, but I've seen.
That sounds awful.
Yeah. The good. There are. I'm not going to say there are some bad sequels. Just to go on one little tangent, there are some good sequels. Like, I personally really like The Lion King 2. Have you seen that?
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's really not that bad. If you're interested, check out a podcast that used to do Did We Need That Sequel?
Oh, really? That's cool.
Oh.
So going back to the prologue.
Yeah. What else can I say?
Or any chapter if you want to bring it up.
I was just gonna say, like, if any of this stuff is worth saying, we've kind of already commented on it. What about the stuff you mentioned to me about the gold?
The gambling. Yeah. I was just about to bring that up before we continued.
Yeah.
I hate the fact. I understand that these two characters need something else in common besides their eyes.
Yeah.
And gambling is a great vice for them both to share.
Yeah.
And I support that decision for their characters. However, they are gambling with gold. And the bet is that Belle will not fall in love with the Beast, and the Beast dies. I don't know what happens when the petal falls.
He remains a beast
forever.
Yeah.
So that's the wager. You know, the same thing the Enchantress did when he was 10 years old. So that was the wager, and they bet 3 million gold pieces. And that makes no sense. You're eternal beings. Like, there's no reason for them to have gold. It's not like they are dealing in the human realm, like buying food, purchasing their own castles. It makes no sense. Do something that holds higher stakes, whether it be someone's life or their soul, or make them a servant, or however that may be. I don't feel that gold is sufficient for their status.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder now, like, with the whole where the narrative ends up going with the book, like, what do they hope to happen? To trap Belle in the book, and that way they won't, like, what's the goal besides not having her fall in love with the Beast? Like, yeah, but we'll get to that.
Bragging rights?
Yeah, exactly. It's just and the only other thing I personally can think to mention is the what's it called, the book being called Nevermore just kind of echoes the new song for the new movie Evermore. That's what I thought of.
Oh,
I don't know if that's why they chose it, just to like almost be like a mirror, or
it is a Disney.
Yeah. It's directly linked to Disney.
Yeah. So that quite possibly is it.
Well, I should mention too that it might be a good thing for the author that this is a Disney book, because
people are gonna buy it no matter what.
Well, not even just that. It's that Disney has tight control on this. And I have no doubt that they probably plotted a lot of this. I'm not going to take away, obviously, all the credit from her. Maybe she did plot a lot of this. But I think that Disney would probably not let her take it maybe farther, as maybe she would like to.
Yeah.
It was probably rushed, so that's why the writing isn't very good. Maybe she is an amazing writer. But
well, maybe we'll have to read another one of her books.
Yeah. But I guarantee this was rushed. And...
Well, that's what some of the reviews on Amazon were saying. Like, I'm so excited that this came out just before the movie. And
right.
I don't know if that's true. Didn't look up the dates.
It was pretty
around
close,
the same
I think.
time.
Yeah, I don't remember, but it was pretty close around the same time. And I actually, before I saw the movie, I almost bought the book. But then saw the movie and was like, hell no. But
then you bought the book anyway.
But then I bought the book because I thought, I'm actually thinking of doing a video essay on the movie about, for me, why it didn't work. And so I bought the book because I wanted to go farther than just that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this podcast came up, and now we're reading the book. So it's great.
Funny.
Yeah. The only other thing I was going to say is, like, with the jazz hands thing, once again, pointless prologue. It leaves no room for intrigue to me.
Yeah.
So we basically know what the book is, that it's trying to capture Belle.
Yeah.
It would actually be interesting if we didn't know. But, oh well.
Yeah.
So, should we move on to chapter 1 then?
Yeah. Chapter 1, which is a rousing 24 sentences.
Yeah, this is...
Can I see what it looks like in book form? Because I have it on my ebook.
Yeah, it's pretty pitiful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's 2 pages.
It's 2 pages, but like...
I can't believe that. It's actually... It's 1 page. Half of the first page, if anyone has the book in front of them... Half of the first page of chapter 1 just says chapter 1 and has all this white space. And then it goes into text. And the second page isn't even a full second page.
Nope,
it doesn't even go all the way to the bottom.
Yep.
Ugh.
It's so dumb because the way it ends, like, it literally does not make sense how it ends. It literally just flows into the next chapter. And, like, what are you trying to do? Like, make us excited for cleaning the library? Like,
yeah. So chapter 1 is Belle going into the library for the second time. Not the first. The second time.
Yes, this book tries to be smart by like, oh, we're here in the present, but then we're going to go backward, and then we're going to jump forward. It's like...
Chapter 2 drives me insane.
Yeah. We'll get there. It's not good. So... I mean, there's really not much to say here. I mean, Belle, I know, like you were saying, like, she's excited to clean because it's the library. To me, it just reads a little too excited because, once again, she's literally held captive here. I know she loves books, but, like, the thing that I think of all the time, like, first, she's not stupid. Like, I love books. Like, when one time, the best comparison I have is I went on a plane one time, and I was having, like, issues, like, with my my nose and my ears, and so my ears weren't popping.
Yeah.
So I felt like my head was going to explode.
Ooh.
It was just the worst feeling. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't read. I couldn't listen to music. I had a hard time concentrating. And I bring that up because if she's held captive, like, imagine her, like, thinking about that all the time, about missing her home, missing her father. She loves books. I get that. But, like, realistically... Let's be real here. She wouldn't be this excited. Like, oh, I can escape into books. Like, how could you escape entirely into books?
Not to bring it up again, but it's like the easiest thing I can reference. Harry Potter. You know, here is a boy that's thrown under the cover, like under the stairs for years and years, and then he finds out he can go to a castle far away where he could learn magic, and he's like, wait, what?
Right.
That is a realistic response. Here comes a giant saying you're a wizard. The first thing you're gonna think of, okay.
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah, because if you think about it, that's a really hard thing to do in fiction, is to bring something supernatural in the real world.
Yes.
And to make it believable via the standards of how would anybody react.
And also take into consideration that when the Enchantress... Now, we know this because we know Beauty and the Beast. At least a little bit.
Yeah.
When she put the spell on Beast when he was 10 years old, the townspeople forgot about the castle and the lords and the servants and everyone up there. So here comes Belle into this castle where there's a beast, and she's excited over a book.
Right.
Like, no, like, your mind was just warped by magic, right. And it was because she lived in this town her whole life since she was a baby, if you're going off of the movie.
Right.
And here's a castle you never knew about with talking, like, furniture. Oh, I just farted with my lips. And talking furniture.
Yeah.
And teapots and candlesticks and all that stuff. And like you said, it's a book.
Right.
Like, yes, there's thousands of tomes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or tombs. Was it tomes? Tombs, I think.
Tomes.
I'm trying to use
should probably know that, but
I don't know. It just...
Yeah.
It's unrealistic.
Yeah. And again, I think a lot of people might say the response to that would be, oh, it's a kid's book, get over it. But I guess, like, my response to that is I won't get over it because when I was a kid, I was fortunate enough to be exposed, not to all good books. I didn't read the best book every single time I read a book. But at the same time, the books that have stayed with me are the ones that were good, like The Bridge to Terabithia's, like
Secret
Number
Garden.
the Stars, Secret Garden, Harry Potter, these books that don't underestimate kids.
Yes.
They don't talk down to them, if that's the word. Yeah.
Yes. That's a perfect summary of that. They don't talk down to them.
Exactly. And yeah, even though it's a short chapter, the one other thing I'm going to say is it talks about Belle holding the mop like a sword. Mm-hmm. It always tries... I love Belle, okay? I love Belle so much.
I know, she's your favorite. Your cat's named Belle.
Yeah. Well, Bella.
Same thing.
No.
They both mean beauty.
Yeah, they do. Oh, God. Anyway. But there's this thing that I kind of, once again, hate about Belle. She's become this sort of manic pixie dream girl. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, she's a warrior, kind of like Mulan. Like, she's like the best of every woman packed into one.
No, Mulan is like the best.
I don't like, it's like, let them be separate. Let them have different characteristics. Mm-hmm. And it's like, they're not saying, oh, she's a warrior like Mulan. That's not what's written in this book. Yeah. But it's highly implied that she is a very fighter. Like a fighter, a well-rounded woman. They changed the movie a lot to make it seem more feminist. Yeah. Not to go down that road, but like just because you can't call her a warrior and then say it's feminist. Like it's just, it's tacking on things that are just there for show, for the jazz hands. Yep.
Well, that's what a lot of people, they have complaints about, again, I'm sorry, Harry Potter, you know, like, now I like the fact that J.K. Rowling said that Dumbledore is supposed to be gay. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people, and we've talked about this before, is there's no indication in the book that he was. Yeah. And like, again, that's fine. You know, either way, I'm okay with that. Right. But it just... like you said, you can't just slap a label on something.
I agree.
And make it fit the narrative.
And what you just said makes a lot of sense because I think there is this desire in a lot of authors
to be more inclusive.
To do things like it's no accident that J.K. Rowling said that Dumbledore is gay around.
Did I say Rowling? Rowling. Sorry.
I slip up all the time, so we can correct each other. I actually didn't even realize you said Rowling. Whoops. But it's no accident that I think it was 2007, 2008 that she made this announcement. And I don't think that's an accident because during that time, that's when a lot of like stuff in politics was going on and stuff around the LGBTQ plus, topics. I'm not going to call J.K. Rowling. I think she's a genuinely nice person.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, call it what it is. She's using that to popularize what she's making. I don't think it's an accident that because then when The Cursed Child became a show in London.
God, I hate The Cursed Child.
Yeah, we'll get into that one day. They cast a black actress and then she said, well, I never said Hermione's race.
Yeah, you did.
She did.
There was an explicit part about Hermione's pale skin.
Yeah, and the thing is, even if she never had reference to it. Yeah. just because you didn't say it doesn't mean that you did say it. And that's an insult. And I understand that's a whole other discussion about the need to have women of color, strong women of color. I get that.
Yes.
But it's an insult. The fact that she's using that. She said when they cast Emma Watson that she was the perfect pick, that she's how I envisioned her that way.
Yeah.
Well,
and like there's no reason why a black actress can't play Hermione, like in the play.
Right.
Like, just don't backpedal.
Right, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Like, you look at all these plays on Broadway. It doesn't matter what color skin you are, as long as
not
you
at
can
all.
sing well.
Exactly.
Like, go for it. As long as you can act.
Right.
Do it. Yeah. Own it. You know? Like, I always think of Titus Andromeda.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yes. When he said he wanted to play Esmeralda. Yeah. Not Esmeralda.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Octopus Lady.
Yeah. Ursula.
Yeah. He wanted to play Ursula, and they weren't ready for him to play Ursula. I would have bought so many tickets. I would have seen that show countless times if he was Ursula. Like, oh my God, I love him. Right. So there's nothing wrong with someone playing outside of their race or gender.
Right. Agree.
Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Or sex. So just don't.
It's just the It's the use to your own advantage of these people that is the problem. It's not the woman of color playing Hermione. It is the statements that J.K. Rowling made. Yeah, and I know that I know that's a tangent,
a tangent.
but it does matter.
It does matter,
and it's annoying that we get these female characters.
His name's not Titus Andromeda either.
I know.
That's the name of him in
I always get that confused. When you said it, I'm thinking, oh my God, is that...
What is his name? We'll have to do a corrections
Titus,
corner. Shoot.
I forget, but yeah.
That's the Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah, it's Kimmy Schmidt, if you're wondering, yeah. I just think of, not to go on another tangent, but I just have to say this. I forget what the original song was in Kimmy Schmidt, but Titus sang it, and these people on YouTube like kind of remixed it.
Oh, really?
Or they didn't remix it. They did a cover of it, but instead of saying whatever it was he was saying, they did it for Game of Thrones for a character named Jack and Hagar, and so they're like, Jack.
I know.
You know the song, and it's so funny. And the thing is, I didn't even remember it from Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh, God.
I didn't even know that what it was from, and then I looked and I was like, "How did I forget that? Oh my gosh!"
So glad you watched that show too.
Oh, it's so good. I haven't watched it in a while, actually, but yeah. But anyway, but that conversation, it was a tangent, but at the same time, it matters.
Yes,
especially because something like this book, it might not seem a big deal. It was in a chapter that's only not even like barely 2 pages. A page.
It's a page.
And like 20. What did you say? 24 sentences.
24 sentences, something like that.
I think a lot of people might read this and just pass it off. It's because it's very casual, but it's stuff like this that bothers me.
Yeah.
I know that was a lot of nitpicking because I don't have nearly as much notes as I did for the prologue. But anyway.
Well, can we just talk about the last sentence of this chapter really quick?
Yes, please.
Everyone stared in horror at the scene before them. Everyone but Belle.
Yeah.
I have such an issue with that as well because these were all servants of the castle.
Yes, yes.
Why are you horrified to know that this library is in such a state? Also, why aren't any of you in there?
Right, exactly. Like,
who's not part of the West Wing?
Yes, exactly. Like, who's in charge of this? Like, and the thing is, like, no other servants are named, which I kind of get, but like, like, who else? Who cleans this?
If you have a manor that large,
right?
You're gonna have more than just Mrs. Potts,
right? Exactly. And like, by the way, like, I love there's one part where she's like, "Chip, read a book," and I'm like, "Okay, how is this plausible? Like, how's he gonna turn the pages?" How old is this kid? Did he learn to read? How old was he when they were cursed?
Yeah, and he never ages.
Well, the new movie tries to pass it off as like they don't age anymore.
A time loop, but then Beast will never turn 21.
Exactly. It's dumb. It's dumb. All right, it's dumb. Anyway,
unless Chip was a baby and he was a thimble and he turned into a teacup.
God. Can you imagine how confused that kid would be? Like, Mama, like,
Mama,
what is this thing I have? Like, just to get a little dark there.
I'm sorry. When he grows older and becomes a boy, he finally gets his handle. Mrs. spots. It's like,
I can't tell if that's your arm or
if it's something else. Yeah. Oh, I wish I had a husband.
I need to get laid. That's what she said.
That's why she steams.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
We've like gone down a rabbit hole that we just cannot come out of. Cannot climb out of. Oh my god.
Anyways.
All right, so chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
So
chapter 1, they went into the library and they're like, oh, it's dirty.
Yeah, that's
chapter
literally
2.
it. Yeah. They should just be one chapter. Like, it's ridiculous. I love how this chapter starts because, like, it says, with a cry of delight, Belle ran into the center of the room, put her mop and bucket down, and turned around in a wide circle, her face full of wonder. And I just imagine her saying, I don't remember my father at all.
It's okay that I'm captive in the castle.
Exactly. She, at one point, let me see if I can find it. There's a thing where it's like her inner monologue.
Yes.
And she's like, it was real. It was here. She was here. And I'm like, are you happy to be here? Like, what's going on here? I just don't. Mm-hmm. It's very disconnected to what Belle would be experiencing. Yeah. And once again, as we said, goes on with this trope of her being this perfect, infallible human who sees the good in everything and likes to be here and to save the beast. Because,
that's the woman's job, to save the man who's a baby.
Yeah. Oh, we'll get to that. Yeah. So true. Oh, and actually, this is the chapter, I think the first one, where we get a use of French.
No, that was
before that.
Yeah, in chapter 1, it's mon ami. I can't speak French.
Oh, I see it.
Last
okay.
page.
Yeah. Okay,
that means my friend. Just to let you know.
Okay. That, and I know it's movies from the original movie because they just got a name or what's it called? Script drop, I'll call it, from the original movie. They use French in the original movie.
Yeah.
But
with context clues, you could figure it out.
Exactly. Like, it's not just thrown around. Like, in the movie, it does it because it's trying to play on the idea of where it's from and stuff, and it's doing it playfully, where this book kind of does it because it has to. Mm-hmm. It feels it has to. It says
put it in France.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It says Mon Dieu.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
I have no idea.
Maybe it's, yeah.
I was just reading the next sentence to see if there's context, and maybe it's my dear.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, even at one point, I actually love that sentence because that's the feather duster. She goes on to say, I've never seen such a, and then Belle goes, wonderful, incredible, astonishing place. And then she goes, I agree, Plumette. And if I were Plumette, I'd be like, that's not what I was going to say.
It's dirty as hell.
Yeah. But whatever, you're crazy.
Ugh.
That's what Belle comes off as in this book to me. She just comes off as very loopy and crazy.
Yeah. She does.
I love Belle so much. It makes me sad to see her this way.
Well, that's the thing, though, because in the second paragraph of this, she's wondering where to start. Love poems, legends, folk tales, volumes of philosophy, history, science, mathematics. Like, it's a mouthful. The Greek epics she references. And later on, they're quoting poetry and Her and Beast. And it's like,
I know.
Come on.
Well, the thing is, too, the Beast, like, they say at one point that he, like, is doing work in there. And I'm like, what work is he doing? Like, what is he doing in there in the library? What work does he do?
Yes.
Like,
everything's
weird.
covered in dust.
Yeah.
Like, nothing's been moved. Nothing's been clean.
Yeah.
Like, all the candles are human, so they would have seen this place before.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Like,
yeah, it's dumb. And
I know they weren't all human. I'm just being dramatic.
Still,
like Belle.
Yeah. Which we can do because we're reading this book. We're allowed. There's this one point on page 15 of my copy where it says, of Chip, said the little teacup was riding on its back, meaning the footstool. And it says, faster, frou-frou, faster, he shouted in his little boy voice. What kind of description is that? In his little boy voice?
It sounds, when you read it like that, it sounds like he actually has, like, a manly voice. And he was using his little boy voice. Yeah. Like, normally I talk like this. Like, okay, so this is exactly like this is my normal voice. But if I want to talk like a little kid, I will go up. Oh God.
Great.
Yeah, high pitched voice or something.
Yes,
like that.
exactly. That's a great way to say it. Yeah, something other than his little boy voice. Like we know he's a little boy. Like
yeah, or another thing I have an issue with. She's always putting he said, she said, he said, she said, but echoed or screeched or sighed or something that's a little bit more descriptive of how they're feeling.
Right.
Well,
because what they're saying is so... A good author shouldn't have to do that. Unfortunately, they kind of do, because the dialogue is not very good.
No.
And so you're right. It needs something. It needs something to make it interesting.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It becomes monotonous almost. He said, she said. Like
I skip those 2 words at the end of the sentence because they're unneeded.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a shame, really.
Not needed, unneeded, whatever it may be.
Well, it's still, yeah.
Like I said, I'm an accountant, not...
Yeah. And just, like, these weird things, like, there's a thing where Cogsworth, like, he says... Okay, I have to read this. It's so weird. It's on page 15 once again. And he says, this is Cogsworth, to me, dust is a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
What? Like... What are you saying?
I've never heard that expression before.
Yeah.
That's a 4-letter word. I heard that's a $2 word. Like... Yeah,
it's just weird. And then Lumiere's just like, dust is a 4-letter word to everyone. So it's like, okay, like, I don't get where they were going with this. It's just strange.
Work is also a 4-letter word.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I guess we're teaching the kids how to spell and how
count.
many letters. Yeah, and count. I mean, it's just weird. I didn't get that at all.
No.
Turn the page. Oh.
All of your notes.
All of my notes.
Honest to God, if anyone saw Danielle's notebook right now, there are more notes on her page than there are words in the chapter.
That's probably true, actually, yeah. It's disgusting. Oh, yeah, see, my note. Dust is a 4-letter word? Okay.
Even your small little quick notes have more emotion in it than this book.
It's true. So I'm gonna skip forward a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
Chapter, because the chapters, they go from like being like 1 page to like 10.
I do like that this in the previous chapter, there's no character development, no background. So say you and I, without any knowledge of Beauty and the Beast, picked up this book, we'd be lost up until the middle of the 2nd chapter.
Right.
And so I like the fact that there's a little bit of background in this.
Yeah.
So go on. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Well, no, that's a good point, actually. I think there's something to be said about this book in that because it's sort of based on this story that a lot of they know their audience. They know that people aren't going to buy this book if they don't recognize the Disney movie.
Yeah.
Or the remake in this case. And I think that they are putting... I think that's almost like, I'm glad they provide a background, but at the same time, it's almost like if this were just a normal book.
Yes. That's how I'm trying to read it.
Right, exactly. And same here. So I agree with you. That's why it's important. But at the same time, like, this book kind of starts at a weird place. So, like, it's doing its best. I give it that. But, like, it also, like, doesn't need, like, I wish it was just a separate story unto itself.
I think this is a 400 and some page book.
So maybe it will...
You could do so much more with it. When I described to a couple of my girlfriends the concept of the book, the summary of it, they were like, oh my gosh, that sounds so interesting, and I would love to read that. I'm like, yes, so would I.
Right.
But it's not, like you said, it's starting off at a weird place. It's like jumping into a well-known movie that everyone else has seen but you.
Right.
In the middle of it. An hour into the movie, and you only have a half an hour left.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, I don't know any of these characters. I can't relate to any of them. Who is this?
Right. Unfortunately, yeah. And it's a shame, but, you know, but like you said, I am trying to read this without that kind of, you know, backpack, whatever, and the knowledge. One of my notes, I just wrote that Belle, this idea that Belle is weird is once again this like sort of perfect human being. Like, she's quirky. It's just so kind of patronizing to me. It just continues it. And it's not exploring really anything of value in her character, unfortunately. That's not what this book is aiming to do. So, let's see, what else? Belle's reflecting in her head, I think. Or no, she's actually talking.
She's speaking out loud.
Yeah, and she says, reading became my sanctuary. And it's like, all right.
Before you read the rest of that, I want to let you know that on my Kindle app, that's one of the things that's been highlighted countless times.
Why am I not surprised?
So if anyone doesn't have Kindle, I want to let you know that if you have it on, like the popular highlights, people highlight sections of the book and it gets underlined. So this was highlighted 28 times. Go on.
That's crazy. At the end of that paragraph, the same one I just mentioned, it says, "What I really found, though, was myself." Feels like a self-help video. I just thought that was so funny. Like, nobody talks like that.
No one.
And even like when I read that, when I wrote my notes, it was
Well, the thing is, it goes back to what you're saying in the first, like the prologue. It's trying to be more whimsical.
Yeah, for sure.
Than it is. And if you read fantasy, I read a lot of fantasy. That is my genre of choice. You don't need whimsical saying. You don't need the, quote, stereotypical not century, but...
Well, like, what's it called? Medieval?
Medieval speak. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need it. And it's not that if you use it, it's bad, but it's how you do it. And again, I guess we keep saying it. Yeah, exactly. And this book, first of all, like, it doesn't give us a time period. I mean, it kind of references Shakespeare and stuff, so we can kind of gather when it's after. But that's the problem. Yeah. That's the problem with Beauty and the Beast, again. Stuff building off of Beauty and the Beast, that's the problem.
That's amazing, because I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
You know, because I know when it's supposed to be. So, I don't know.
It's... I don't think that they wanted... I think a strong author could come to the Beauty and the Beast story and put the work in and say, this is when I think it would take place. I honestly think Beauty and the Beast is one of those stories that is just so kind of problematic, and to just take it and build off of it is quite a big challenge. And I think you have to go all in or not at all. Yeah. And so that's, why this book to me is just kind of will fail a little bit. It might be good by the end. Maybe I'll be like, oh, I liked it. But ultimately, I don't think.
So far, it's not to a good start.
Yeah. Good way to say it.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to say is in my copy on page 21. Let me see if I can find it. She says the beast... I don't have it exactly, but what I wrote in here is the beast was not anyone else. Like,
yeah, that's when she's describing all the characters.
Yeah,
like they're warm and funny, cheerful, boisterous. He was different, gruff. I don't know what that word is.
I can't see. I don't know.
Right there.
Where? Uh-oh, went away.
Hold on.
We're having trouble. Let me see if I can find it.
Cut that out. Where did it go?
Where is... Do you... I'm trying to find it, and I cannot find it.
Oh, it's weird. First paragraph. It says library. The beast wasn't like the Mrs. Pop, blah, 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 blah. So, he was different. Rough.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay, he wasn't like the... reclusive? Enigmatic? Enigmatic.
What does that mean?
Exactly. I don't know.
How is a 10-year-old supposed to know what that means?
Exactly.
I mean, like, if you know what that means and you're 10, good for you.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I don't know what that means either. It's kind of like, big word. This is a smart book. No, you're not very smart book. But yeah, it's just, again, I mean, just talking about that, the big word, it's unnecessary. And this book does this a lot, where we'll take a character or something that it's describing and use 3 words to describe it. Yeah. I wish I would have underlined that because I didn't pick it up until just now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times I sort of noticed that in my head,
Yeah.
but only now just like really registered it.
I mean, I do that, but I'm an amateur writer.
I was going to say, I do it too.
I do it in threes,
yeah.
But I'm training myself not to do that.
Well, I think too, like with authors, like when somebody writes something, I think it's general to say that like it might not be good the first time. That's why you rewrite. That's why you have an editor, have like people helping you, or just rewriting it yourself.
That's perfect to point out. This feels like a first draft.
Yeah.
Feels
very
like
true.
a first draft.
It does. So that's all I have to say for chapter 2. I don't know if you have anything else.
One last thing on chapter 2, last paragraph and last sentence.
Okay.
The beast had given her an unexpected present, a gift more valuable to her than his castle, all his lands, and more precious than jewelry or gold. Last night, Beast had given her his books. If he had given her any of those listed beforehand, her and her father would not be in the position that they were, because they were broke and they owed taxes.
So true.
So she's being selfish.
So true.
Sorry. So
wait, hold on 1 second.
What?
Can I
Go
see
ahead.
your copy real quick? Like, can I see
sure.
what you just read off of?
Yeah. Last sentence. Is yours different?
Okay, no. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, I thought. Okay, just wanted to make sure because I thought it was. Phone overboard.
God.
But yeah, I agree.
That would have been amazing if yours was different from mine.
That's what I was
hoping.
Laugh
so hard.
I was really excited. I'm sad that it's not different.
We're sad that it's not worse than it is.
That would have been awesome. All right, chapter 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, this chapter basically goes back in time.
Yes.
Yeah, so when the beast gives her, or I think this is the chapter where he tries to give her the library.
Yes. It was the night before.
Yes.
But it doesn't say that it's the night before, but it feels like it's the night before.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the night before, and then it goes back to like a week ago.
Yeah.
And there's no transition.
Right.
Like,
it tries. Again, an experienced author could do it.
And she's experienced.
Yeah, I shouldn't say experienced.
She must have been rushed.
Yeah.
Because I think...
Yeah, that's true. I shouldn't be too hard because we have talked about that already.
Yeah, she has all these awards and stuff, and we never read anything else of hers. So she might... If it wasn't this book, she might be very... Very...
Good.
Very good. The other ones might be done well.
Yeah.
But this one, again,
Yeah.
Sorry, just looking for a hair tie.
No worries. Actually, if you can't find one, I probably have one.
No, that's fine. Go on with your point. Chapter 3.
So, basically the book starts out with the beast saying, "I have a surprise for you," and Belle's just like, "No."
She's stubborn.
Yeah, and I get that she's being stubborn, but it's like, I think it negates her character development.
Well, yeah, because this is what you were saying before.
Yeah.
This is where they're trying to add depth.
Right.
By instead of just being the turning around in the big library going, look at all the books. Now we have someone that's angry and resentful.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. I know they're trying. I know exactly. Yeah, you make a good point.
Yeah.
It's just
not executed well. That's you're gonna hear time and time again in this book. It's not executed well.
Yeah, and I think, like in the 1991 movie, after the beast rescues Belle, there's that whole conversation between the two of them when she's helping him with his wounds, and she is stubborn in that, and that's a great example of character development because you have them going back and forth, you have great dialogue, and you having them coming to a consensus that he just saved her life and she just saved his. Yeah. They're almost an equal footing. That she's still his captive, but that...
They don't owe each other anything.
Right. And there's this weird thing in this book where it feels the need to make Belle angrier. And I think Belle is angry, but at the same time, what we see in the movie is that she's just very sad, that she's very lonely.
It's like, where do you want to come from? Do you want to be sad, lonely, angry?
Mm-hmm. And
is this a spin-off or its own story?
Yeah, and it's just I keep saying this, but it's just kind of making Belle into this character that is like supposed to be like the perfect woman, like, of course she'd be mad. Like, I don't want your surprise. Like, I don't know. It's just...
Well, like this sentence, the beast had blinked, taken back by her refusal.
That's
well,
so bad.
Of course she's gonna, like, refuse your prize. Like, your surprise.
He's like,
Here,
what? What? Like, you're refusing my reprise. I was about to say.
Exactly.
Surprise? Like, what have I done to you?
Yeah, who do you think you are, refusing my gift?
Which, again, like, the beast is such, like, I mean, we know he's, like, not the greatest person in the world, but they also turn the beast into, like, this whiny little, oh, Belle won't be nice to me. Like,
which I also am confused about, because he was turned into a beast when he was 10.
Well, not according to this.
Not according to this?
Well, in the film, the remake...
In the film, he was, like, 18 or something,
yeah, in the remake, the 1991...
That's why I'm so confused.
Yeah, the 1991 version has its issues. It has the stained glass where he looks older, but then it says 10 years we've been resting, implying that he was 11 or 10.
Yeah, it's in the remake in the song. Don't they sing about 10 years?
It does, but he's older.
Yeah.
So maybe, but
come on,
they don't
Disney.
age. They don't age. Maybe.
Oh, that's the loophole.
It's dumb.
But even if he was 10, who's raising him?
Exactly. Where are his parents?
Where are
that's
his
another
parents?
thing. That would be really interesting if they were turned into, like, an object in the castle. Oh my gosh. Wasted potential.
It's wasted. Go on. I'm sorry. Chapter 3.
Yeah, we're getting there. I didn't really write that many notes for this chapter, actually, because there are points, like, in this book, I will say, that you just kind of, there's really not much to say. It's just kind of bland, so you just keep going.
Yeah. Oh, this was fun.
Yeah.
On the first page of chapter 3, at least for me, it says, a single rose had made her captive, and she wanted to know why. Then you go 2 pages over, it says, she had seen it, a single red rose. Like, it's repetitive, you know?
Yeah.
And again, I don't like this chapter because of the time hops.
Yeah.
It just doesn't mesh well, because if you're going to make chapter 1 a page, and you're going to make chapter 3 several pages, break up the time hops.
Right. Yeah, there's no consistency.
There's no consistency.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also, like, I think this chapter and chapter 4 kind of, what they're trying to do is almost be a synopsis. Mm-hmm. And, like, if I've learned anything, like, when I was younger, I always wanted to rewrite, I loved Pirates of the Caribbean. And I wanted to rewrite the first movie as, like, a book. What would that look like? And I learned pretty quickly. Well, basically. But what's interesting, though, is, like, when you actually try to rewrite a movie out as a book, it doesn't work.
No.
You can't do that.
Because you need the visual cues.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to make it a book, you can't just go, and then Elizabeth did this, and then she did this. You have to change it entirely to work as a book.
Show, not tell.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this book is trying to do something similar, and it just can't. Like you said, it's jumping back and forth. It can't do it. It doesn't know how, unfortunately. Yeah. And once again, going to the idea that this book was probably rushed. So
what I feel would have made it so much better is if they took this chapter and made it chapter 1.
Yeah, that actually, yeah.
You know, because then you get a synopsis of it. Like, you have Love and Death going, this is our wager. Then, but that's the prologue. So you can completely disregard that. And then read chapter 1, and it's a quick recap. So the new readers, the first time people hearing this story, be like, oh, she's a captive. Then you're given this gift of the library. Then she's cleaning it. Then she's, like, it's a progression.
Oh, but Brittany, that's not as interesting. There's a thing where...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, also, I don't feel that, like, I feel when you read a book, you should be able to skip the prologue. And I think the prologue is essential to when we are reintroduced to Nevermore. You know? And, like, that's how I feel. I feel that, like, you should be able to get pieces of the prologue throughout the book.
I agree, yeah.
And, like, that's kind of just like a little bonus. you know. So sorry. That was just a little tangent about something else.
Well, that's actually really important because so that would be a smarter way to do it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this book doesn't do that. But yeah, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of prologues, honestly.
Okay.
So I agree with you 100% on that. Because prologues are kind of like things like, oh, and then this.
I couldn't figure out how to put it in.
Right, exactly.
So here it is.
And it's clunky.
It's clunky.
And I think this book, what it's trying to do is like, oh, well, you know, it's edgy, you know? It's not starting in the beginning, you know, you start here, but then you go backwards. Yeah. And we're going back and forth. It's like, but there's something to be said of just telling a straightforward narrative.
Yeah.
I understand that it's kind of nice to go back and forth.
Italicize it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or do something. If it's warranted, do it. But this is not a high... Well, what were you going to just say?
No, continue your point, because I'm going to expand on it.
Well, I was just going to say that, like, I've read several books that go back and forth. I would have to actually think about which ones they are, but I know I've read them in the past, like, and I know, like, I've read some that work, some that don't. Usually when they don't work, it's confusing and the author, like, hasn't thought it out that well. Yeah. It can be done, but there's something to be said about just telling a straightforward story.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The point I was going to make, and it goes back to the book I referenced before, the Kingkiller Chronicles. It's a story of this man who has all these legends surrounding him. And he is telling a chronicler his story. So you're going back and forth between time. But it makes sense because it's 3 days. The whole book, like series is 3 days in a bar, and he's telling his story.
Okay.
And so there's it's a section of the story. Then a chapter of them being in the bar again. A section, like a big section of stories. Chapter in the bar. Big sections of the story. So it's a straightforward narrative to how he's speaking. But you do have that time jump.
That's a really actually good example, though, because I think a lot of people might come to that and be like, oh, this stupid structure. But at the same time, that's actually a really smart way to tell the story. I totally get, like, where people are coming from when they say, oh, that's annoying. But at the same time, like, it's better than this book. Like, yeah. I mean, that actually does something that works and that's smart. Be critical of it, you know, of course, but that sounds like a good style. You
need a way. If you're going to time jump, you need a way to do it, whether it be in dreams, visions, just spoken word. You have to have a device to bring you into the past.
Right.
And this does not have a device to bring you back into the past.
Not at all. Not at all. And one thing I also should say is that, and you kind of already mentioned this a little bit, but like the servants, it's very confusing as to what their jobs are. And not only that, but like they actually say, let me see if I can find it.
Was it about Cogsworth and Lemire?
No, it is, let me see, I think, she says, they've been talking about the master and what happened to him, and Mrs. Potts says, you have so many questions, child, and who wouldn't? Let me at least answer your first one. We stay with our master because we will not abandon him twice. And then Belle says, twice? I don't understand. Mrs. Potts goes, we knew how terrible his father was to him, and yet we did nothing. That man was the true beast, and we were too frightened to stand up to him. Our master needs us now as much as he did then, and this time we will not forsake him. And this is my problem with that. And I like to call it the Downton Abbey syndrome. Have you ever watched Downton Abbey at all?
I've just seen parts of it.
Okay. So for those of you who have watched Downton Abbey, Downton Abbey, as the show goes on, loves to do this thing where it like makes the servants happy to serve the people that they're serving.
Oh, like house elves.
Yeah. Very good, yeah. And they're friends with them. And it's okay that the main character, Lord Grantham, you know, does stuff to benefit himself and they have to suffer. You know, two of them want to get married. He wants it at Downton Abbey. Oh, we'll do it at Downton Abbey because Lord Grantham has been so good to us. Like, this book, and even the movie, the 1991 version, romanticizes this idea of servants' relationships to their master. Like, do you actually think these people would like this man? You have to think about historically, these people
they were just getting by.
Exactly. Like, they don't live with him, okay? They take care of him. They do stuff for him. I mean, nice. I know, like, historically speaking, sometimes some of the servants would have relationships, but, like,
oftentimes they will live on the premises.
Yeah, and that's fine. But at the same time, like, there's this weird relationship going on where they're so attached. And it's like, you do realize that this whole family, like, you wouldn't be in this situation if it weren't for this.
Exactly. If he wasn't so selfish, if he wasn't so beast-like.
Yeah. And it's just annoying to me because, like, especially, I mean, this book, it's not like, I mean, it is prominent, but it's kind of like in the background.
Yeah.
But, like, whenever I watch Downton Abbey, that would bother me because there are times where, like,
that is interesting because Downton Abbey is not a fantasy. It's not a fairy tale.
It's supposed to be historical. That's the problem. Yeah.
Because, like, this, you can have a little bit more lenience because it is a fairy tale.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
However, if it's set in something that's a little bit more realistic or even historical, you want raw emotion. But from a marketing standpoint, you want everyone to be relatable. It's a hard thing to balance, but I agree with you. Yeah. You should have that sense of realism. Like we were saying, this is like the third time we repeat it. You don't want to dumb down the situation for a child. Yeah. You know, yes, Mrs. Potts probably feels guilty for neglecting the child like any child would, but he's not a child anymore.
Right, exactly.
He is an adult.
Right.
He's been an adult. And he's a bitch.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No finer way to put it.
Like, I mean, let him go. Be angry with him. You're a teapot, and you're gonna continue to be a teapot unless he straightens up. Like,
well, and I know the movie, like the new movie, tried to be like, because they have this exact conversation, Mrs. Potts and Belle, where Belle's like, "Why do you stick with him?" And I know what they're going for. They're going for this idea of forgiveness, the narrative of forgiveness. There's a difference between being a pushover and forgiving somebody. Yes. And that's what this story does. And when I say this story, I think we should definitely try to differentiate between the 1991 animated movie
book.
And then the book and the new movie, the live action. Because there is a big difference. And that is part of it right there. Yeah. So what else? And even, like, at one point she says, "We've made our bed and now we must lie in it." And I literally wrote, "No, you haven't. Like, you haven't done anything." Like, but yeah. So, trying to see if there's anything else I want to mention before we move on to our final chapter.
I don't know. So, like, basically chapter 3 was the time hop summarization of all of this.
Yeah. Well, even the way I just want to mention real quick, the way he, like, pleads with her, it's, like, kind of uncomfortable to me.
Yes.
It's weird.
I don't like when Lemire is saying, "Might I suggest, Master, that you employ a smile and a friendly tone of voice to indicate that it is a happy surprise and not just a trip to the guillotine." Like,
I know. Yeah.
I cleaned up that sentence a little bit because it's a little bit more clunkier. Because there's a lot of commas and pauses, and I omitted words. It's not a direct quote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like this chapter in any way, shape, or form.
Not good. Well, we only have one more, so that's okay. We're almost done with this part. All right, so chapter 4.
Chapter 4.
So this chapter is when she gets the library.
Yes.
Once again, it drags on. It doesn't need to be. It could be like like you said, this could have been an opening chapter. Yes. For getting the library. And you couldn't have had, like, all this weird, like, back and forth makes it longer, makes it a little convoluted. Doesn't need to be. I thought in the new live action movie with the whole library, I thought it was kind of underwhelming. I think it's a little minimized. I don't know how you feel about that.
I don't remember what it looked like. Oh, do you mean just the look of the library or the feeling?
Just like I think the overall tone of the new movie didn't convey this. Like, in the original movie, like, the score is just swelling and it's amazing.
And how they transferred to them dancing then. Yes.
And it's so good.
Because that shows the time passing, them developing the relationship. The library is more than just books. It's a place where they could relate to one another.
Yeah, I agree. And this doesn't really get that. I mean, it just kind of like puts her there, and it's like, I don't know. It's just kind of like, oh, I love books.
Yeah.
I can't wait to jump into a book.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like a kind of like a bookworm. Like this is like a book that's like saying, oh, we love bookworms.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why another part that was highlighted, just like in the previous chapter, was all her life she loved books. She loved the look of them, the smell of them, the sweet weight of them in her arms. Most of all, she loved the feeling she got every time she picked one up. The feeling of holding an entire world in her hands. So that it's recalling, this is Belle. This is you as the outsider that loved books.
Right.
This is you instead of being on the playground playing kickball or dodgeball.
Right.
You're in a corner, like, reading a book.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's for 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
But 10-year-olds aren't highlighting this on Kindle.
I was going to say, that's a really good point. And I was going to say, like, I don't know how it is now. I know kids get teased a lot sometimes if they like reading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was.
I was going to say, like, I know that happens, but, like, I think the general consensus, though, is that when a kid is reading, people say, look at them, like, that's, like, almost admirable. I mean, when I was little, I loved reading because, like, it was almost like people, like, would look and be like, oh, she's reading. Like, she's not interested in, like...
Oh, good for her. She's reading.
Yeah. So, I almost feel like this book is, like, trying to cater to this idea that, like, reading books is stupid, and I just don't think...
Yeah. It's, like, it's having your cake and eating it, too.
Yeah.
You know, it's, like... We want to show you how good books are, but... If you were reading this for the first time, how did you know books are bad?
Right, exactly.
You know, a girl doesn't know she's weak until you tell them that she's weak.
That's a good, yeah.
Until you tell her that she's strong, rather.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Boys don't know that boys will be boys unless you tell them it's an excusable action.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of what this book is feeling. Like,
yeah. That's a really good observation, actually. And I think one that we see a lot in this book, that once again, it's a book that you come to, by all appearances, it's not a bad book, and it actually is not a problematic book, but it contributes to these ideas that we have, these
stereotypes,
these unhealthy ideas that exist, and Disney is a huge part of that, and that's a larger conversation that we can have another time, but there's we could do a whole podcast episode, I'm sure, on, like, the influence of Disney in American culture and just culture in general, and on gender, and on these ideas that we have about the American experience are very much Disneyfied. So much so that you can hardly tell the difference.
Yep.
And it is a problem, unfortunately. And I think that's what maybe would keep this book. There are tons of books, like even in Harry Potter, like we see Hermione loving books. What's the difference between that and something like this? Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, what were you going to say?
I was going to say the difference is they just poke fun of that literally in the first couple of chapters of introducing her.
That's so
then
true.
They show her saving Harry's life countless times. Her using books from Dumbledore to figure out the Deathly Hallows. Like she is the studious one, and she keeps Ron and Harry going.
Right.
And it's poked fun of at the very beginning, but that's the only time.
Yeah. Unless
it's Draco, in which case it's brought up again.
Right, yeah. And even, like, it might poke fun, but, like, it's doing it in a way that's, like, a playful way, not, like, a demeaning or...
They have a whole house dedicated to the...
Right, yeah.
to the people that love books.
True, yeah. And Hermione would be in that house if not for Gryffindor.
Yeah, exactly. That's a different discussion. I think Hermione would be a Slytherin.
What?
No, 100%. I think that she would be a Slytherin. We'll discuss that later.
This reality?
No, okay.
We're really big Harry Potter fans, so we could, like, do a whole episode about, like, how
why it was amazing.
Yeah.
What are you?
I'm gonna say Hufflepuff, but honestly, I've taken the test, and I have been sorted into Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Gryffindor.
From Pottermore? All of them. Oh, look at that. You could choose.
But you know what's interesting? I've taken the test like multiple times over years, so like I change. Yeah. It's interesting. So I like that. It's cool. I was a Hufflepuff.
You should ask your Echo. She'll sort you.
Oh, will she?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, Gryffindor through and through.
Nice. I'm becoming a Gryffindor. It's interesting. I was definitely more a Hufflepuff, but I know like I won't be specific, but maybe you can think of my reference. Of like where I sort of have become a Gryffindor.
Yeah.
Unintentionally. That's something else.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We can cut that all if you want.
No, it's okay. Because but you won't know. I'm like getting really close to the microphone.
Just so you know. Anyways.
Yeah. So there's this one line in the chapter 4 which I think is just so hilarious. It starts off with the Beast saying her eyes are closed, and then Belle's response is, "You've asked me 5 times." Let's just picture that for a moment. Are your eyes closed?
You've asked me 5 times.
Yeah. It's hilarious. Like are your eyes closed? Are your eyes closed? Shut the F up.
Like, let's go.
I want to.
You wanted the surprise from me, and now I'm here for the surprise. Let's go.
I wish she would have been like, "That's it. No, I don't want to know," and walked away. Now that would have been interesting.
Near a staircase in a blindfold.
The horror.
That's her inner dialogue, just so you know. Oh, I know. She says that out loud.
I was gonna say.
LOL. All right. Can we please read this?
Yeah,
from
please
the start?
do.
Right.
Please do.
So, do you want to be Belle or the Beast? Just the first.
Oh, where is it?
It's just the. Let's go from "Are your eyes closed?" Do you want to be Belle or the Beast?
I'll be the Beast. Okay. Is it your eyes, like the very first line?
Yeah, let's just go from the first line.
Okay. Your eyes are closed.
You've asked me 5 times.
You can't see anything.
Not with a blindfold.
Wait there. Don't wander off.
Wander off? Near a staircase? In a blindfold? Like,
I love how you just read that. In a blindfold?
Like, okay. I would never say that. Like, I get it. You're supposed to be sarcastic, but like, oh yeah, I'm gonna wander off.
Well,
cool.
that's actually interesting you just said that. They try to make Belle like kind of saucy in this. And it's like, okay, what do you want her to be?
Nice.
Yeah, like you know, okay, again, Harry Potter, like he has a sassy tone to his voice sometimes, but that is literally his character.
Yeah.
Like Belle really has no character. She likes books. That's it. She's pretty much a blank slate.
You could do anything with her.
Pretty much. But it's just like, oh, she's being sarcastic. Like, wander up near a staircase in a blindfold.
Also, why would she need her eyes closed if she's wearing a blindfold?
Why?
It's like when you play 7-Up when you're a kid.
Yeah.
And you looked under your arm at the shoes.
Well, you know, this is Disney. This is Disney, folks.
This is Disney.
Yeah. So there's this part where they do this thing where they're finishing each other's sentences or something. I wrote down
when they're reciting
the
Romeo
Shakespeare.
and Juliet.
Yeah, and all I wrote was, "Oh my god, no, barf."
Say that louder for the people at home.
Oh my god, no, barf. And yeah, it's just weird. And then on the last page, let me see, paragraph 2 I wrote. If I read this, where is it? Oh, it says, this is Belle's inner monologue. It says, "She might be a captive, but in this room, with a book in her hand, she could be free." I'm like, no, you're not. Bitch, get it together.
24 highlights, according to the Kindle.
That's the thing. Like, people, like, that's all this book is. It's full of little happy quotes that make you feel better. That's all it
For being a nerd.
is. Yeah, exactly. And it's like...
And I could say that because I'm a nerd.
Exactly. Same here. And I think there is this notion that nerds are, like, not... Like, nerd culture is, like, completely different than it was years ago.
Yes.
And it's cool now, almost, to be a nerd.
I feel like these people are highlighting these sections to get them tattooed and script.
Oh, God. Really
in
barf.
Comic Sans.
Violently vomiting. But
oh my god, it's right next to the rose tattoo and it's in its case.
Well, the final thing I just want to comment on is when Belle's like thanking him and she's like, "If I could borrow 1 or 2," And then she, there was no answer, and she turns around, and he's not there, and it says the beast had gone. And all I wrote in my notes is, beast out!
Beast out!
Like,
he dropped the microphone like Obama.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's just not there. Like, he just walked away. Like, mid-conversation. Like, she's...
it's rude.
Yeah,
How dare you?
It is rude. No wonder nobody...
I get it. You've been a monster for the past 10 years, maybe. I don't know. We don't know.
Well...
And you don't have interaction with humans often. But it's still...
Well, like, she's talking, then he's just like, all right, I'm just gonna go now. Bye.
Just gonna slowly ease my way out. You know, she said that she laughed, and he wasn't there anymore. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. He's like, haha, oh, okay.
If anyone walked out of, like, on me in mid-conversation, and I'm like, okay, cool. In a blindfold?
Yeah, in a blindfold? That should be our catchphrase.
In
like,
a blindfold.
anytime they do something
God,
weird.
that would be the website quote.
Yes!
Yes.
That's great.
Visit our website.
Yes.
What is it?
BaBat podcast.
BOBAT.
What?
BOBAT.
B-O-B.
You said BABAT.
Books as bad as Twilight.
B-O.
No, B-A.
Oh, you have a BaBat.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was...
this is a realization.
Oh, it is a realization. I read that wrong.
But I still like it.
Oh,
I like the boba tea thing.
Yeah, well,
like...
everything else is boba tea.
That's okay. Wait, really? Wait a minute.
I had to change our email address.
I was trying to think. This is amazing.
Books as bad as... Okay.
This
Baba
is
tea.
amazing. Oh my gosh. Like,
I think
is so funny.
O instead of A.
That is so... When you said that, I was like, oh my god, what have I done? I just bought a domain name.
No. That makes much more sense.
That is so funny. Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh my god, boba tea.
Folks,
we
just had a breakthrough. This was amazing. This is great podcast material right now.
Do you remember when I said I can't read? That's the perfect example. BABAT. Oh, BaBat.
This is amazing.
That's so good.
Oh, I love this. This is just fantastic. All right. So we just had a breakthrough on the podcast. Pages coming
look at
soon.
The picture of you. It's so cute on the website.
So is yours.
Oh my gosh.
It's so cute. Yes, our website is babatpodcast.com.
BABAT podcast.com.
That can sound like a rap, like
BABAT. We're white. I don't know if you can tell that.
It shows.
Like super white.
You can't see us, but you could just feel it through your earphones or whatever. Anyway, we have pages. We have a Facebook group. We have a Twitter page. We have an Instagram. Wait, do we have an Instagram?
We have an Instagram,
okay,
which I have to change the name to now.
We have an email. We have a Goodreads page. It's all good. So with that was the prologue and the 4 chapters.
There's 4 chapters.
Yeah, so...
quick recap. Prologue was about life and death and their chess game.
No, love and death.
Love and death. Oh, see,
I know. Honest mistake.
Love and death and their game of chess and gambling over the beast's, his state of beastum.
I like the beastum.
And then chapters 1 through 4, it was a quick prologue. A quick summary of why we're at this point, and Belle got her library.
Yes,
that is it.
Essentially, not much. So not much really happened. We talked a lot, but not much happened.
No.
So
that's because there's a lot of issues. And like I said, it's one of those books that you read. We really didn't have to write any. Like, it's just one of those books that you can read, and like you said, it's kind of like, oh, candy, brain candy. Mm-hmm.
But
it's not so sweet.
No, it's very bitter, actually.
Bitter. Brain coffee,
yeah. No creamer. Anyway, that's about it. So we will talk to you all next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Have a good evening, or morning, or afternoon.
Whenever you're listening.
Peace.
Yeah, peace out.